हरे कृष्णा प्रभु जी।
हरे कृष्ण प्रभु, दंडवत प्रणाम।
चलो प्रणाम प्रभु।
Don't start the recording now, Prabhu.
या
Don't start the recording now. हरनाम संकीर्तन महायज्ञ की जय। श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय।
Jai.
हरि बोल। प्लीज
Jai.
बोल।
Hare Krishna.
हरे कृष्ण।
Hare Krishna. Prabhu. So first and foremost, welcome everyone to this continuing session. Am I audible? Just wanted to check with everyone. Is the sound clear? Perfect. Okay. And you can see Ravipati Prabhu giving a thumbs up. Thank you, Prabhu, for being here. Let us first start with Mangalacharan, and today we will continue the next 10 to 12 verses of Akrura. Today we will unfurl a bit of science as well as spirituality, both. We can appreciate the Srimad Bhagavatam from a very new, specific botanical and zoological angle today. So it's going to be very interesting. I am very excited to speak today about the prayers, continuing from the 10th verse of Akrura. So before we start, just like Akrura prayed for everybody's benefit and also surrendered unto the Lord, let us also pray Mangalacharan, and let us also ensure that we are also praying for the success of this program and also invoke auspiciousness in our life. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kada Mahyam Dadati Swapadantikam. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutapata Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगण रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधाकृष्णपादान् सहगणललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च हे कृष्णा करुणा सिंधो दीनबंधो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिका कांत राधाकांत नमोस्तुते तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये नमामि विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामिन्निति नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधरम श्रीवासदि गौरभक्तवृंदम हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे. So welcome everyone to these wonderful prayers which are part of the Vandanam, that is Akrura, praying to the Supreme Personality of Godhead Sri Krishna, looking into the waters of Yamuna, where Lord Sri Krishna has showcased a very beautiful Adbhuta form of him lying down on Anantasesh, who is none other than Balaram, and with the Siddhas, Charanas, Gandharvas, Brahma, Shiva and many other demigods are constantly offering prayers to none other than the Supreme Lord. When Akrura turned back, he saw Krishna and Balaram on the chariot, and when Akrura turned back again, he saw the beautiful form of Lord Narayan on Anantasesh. So bewildered, he understood that he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and he started offering his prayers. In the previous lecture, we spoke about the first 10 prayers of Akrura, and we saw that if we study Srimad Bhagavatam just like that, we don't get the inner conversations which are happening between Krishna and Akrura. And we saw how those inner conversations were laid out in the previous lecture, where a very quick recap we would do of the 10 verses. It will not take more than 3 minutes to do a quick recap, because we generally forget. If it is 1 week long, we forget what was the first verse, what was the second verse. So Akrura, looking at the Supreme Lord Narayan, he says Sarva Karna Karanam, or in other words, he says Hetu Hetunam, you are the cause of all causes. That is the first verse that Akrura mentions, that you are the cause of all causes. And then he starts to explain in the second verse how he is the cause of all causes, because he says everything that is coming up, earth, water, fire, air, ether, false ego, Mahatattva, living entities, Maya, Pradhana, Jiva, time, karma, all these senses, sense objects, everything is coming from his transcendental body. So he is explaining that he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So when he spoke about all this matter, Krishna asks a question, which is, if everything is coming from me, the material ingredients are also coming from me? Then he says, yes, the material ingredients are also coming from you, but they cannot know you. Then Krishna says, but what about the jivas? They are not material, they are spirit. How can they know me? So actually then Akrura says, actually they also cannot know you. Practically no one knows you. Only your pure devotees know you. And how does he say that? He says, Yoginaha. He says, Brahma also cannot know you completely. Even he got bewildered at some point of time. So even jivas cannot know you completely. And everything is happening because of you. So Krishna says, okay, fine. Can you explain that further about the jivas? Then he says in the text number 5 that there are different kinds of people who try to know you. First kind of people are the Sankhya yogis, who try to know you by Sankhya yoga, and they follow various different karmas, Vaitanikas, and they also try to understand you by Adi Bhautik, Adi Daivik, and Adhyatmic forces, but they also cannot know you. The second kind of people are the Vaitanikas, Dvijas, or the Karmis. They think that by doing fruitative activity, I will worship you and I will get you. So, like that, they also worship, but they also cannot get to know you. But indirectly, if you look at all these people, they are worshipping you. Then Krishna says, wait, wait, how are they worshipping me? Then Akrura says, no, they are worshipping you because you are the one who is guiding the demigods. You are the one who is sitting as a super soul. So whether it is Adi Bhautik, Adi Daivik, Adhyatmic, or whether it is giving of fruitative results of what they have prayed for, you are the one who is a sanctioner. So indirectly they are worshipping you. Then he says, Krishna says, are there any other categories? He says, yes, there are some people who worship you by knowledge, and they go in samadhi and they worship you. But you are the one who is the embodiment of knowledge. Jnana Swarupa Jnana Vigraham. So you are the embodiment of knowledge. So even though they are running after knowledge, because you are the embodiment of knowledge, they are also worshipping you. So Sankhya yogis are worshipping you, Karma yogis are worshipping you, then Jnana yogis are worshipping you. Krishna says, tell me something more. Who else are worshipping me? Then Akrura comes and says, Vaishnavas, they are the best worshipper because they are following Vaishnava scriptures. And by following Vaishnava scriptures, they are directly worshipping you, and they understand that you are the one and only Supreme Personality of Godhead. At the same time, they also understand, though you are the one and only Supreme Personality of Godhead, you have many forms who are worshipable. So like this, only Vaishnavas come to know. Then there are other people who are the Shaivites. They believe in many other forms of the Lord, but they are all coming from you and you are sitting in them, hence they are constantly worshipping you. And to give this, the 10th verse, he mentions an analogy, which is where we stopped last week. We will continue from that analogy. What was that analogy? So I will share my screen right now. We will see that verse again and then we will talk about it. Let's look at it. So the analogy that he provides is about this beautiful shloka. Yatadri prabhavadnadhya parjanya purita prabho vishwanti vishanti sarvata sindhum tadvatvam gatayo antata. And what is the analogy he gives? As rivers are born from the mountains and filled by the rain, flow from all sides into the sea. Look, Akrura is very, very intelligent. We might see that, oh, we have learned this in our 3rd standard. You know what? Clouds come from the ocean and the clouds travel a long distance. They strike with the mountains and they drop the rainwater. The rainwater becomes small rivulets, streams, and it gushes through the mountains, cuts the mountain stones, makes way and forms beautiful streams and valleys and rivers, and these rivers come from all sides and enter the ocean. And again sun's energy is there, again the cloud is formed. This entire process we have written in our 3rd, 4th standard and got 10 marks in our unit test. So the same thing seems like Akrura is saying here, seems like a geographical lesson that he is actually revising us. But let us see the beautiful inner meanings of particular this shloka. So do all these paths in the end reach you, O Master. So what is he saying? He is actually answering the question of Krishna. Suddenly, if you look at it, he was talking about the Shaivites, and suddenly he is coming to an analogy which is mentioning about the ocean. There should be some connection between one prayer and the other, right? So here Krishna has asked the question. What is the question Krishna has asked? You are saying that all these people are worshipping their respective demigods, isn't it? Then Akrura says, yes, they are worshipping their respective demigods. So if they are worshipping the demigods, and then you are saying that even though they are worshipping the demigods, they are indirectly worshipping me, correct? Then Akrura says, yes, because you are sitting in everybody's heart as super soul. Then Krishna says, then tell me, I have a question. If everybody is worshipping the demigods and they are indirectly worshipping me. Shouldn't they reach to me? Because finally they are worshipping me, and I have told in Bhagavad Gita, those who worship me reach me. So what is the problem? Why are they not reaching me? This philosophical question is being answered by this particular analogy. He is actually saying that the entire clouds are nothing but the Vedas. The Vedas are coming from the ocean, Abdihi. And who is the ocean? Krishna is the ocean. And from Krishna, the clouds of Vedas are coming. And from the clouds, what falls down? Rainwater falls down. This rainwater is nothing but different forms of worship, the different ways we can worship the Lord. And where does it fall? On the mountains. The mountains are nothing but different kinds of worshippers. There can be Shaivites, there can be Jnana Yogis, there can be Karma Yogis, there can be demigod worshippers. These are the different mountains. They can utilize these rainwater, which is like different worshipable aspects, from the clouds, which are Vedas, coming from the supreme ocean, which is Krishna. So what happens? They use this rainwater, and this rainwater comes from all sides. Now why is he saying all sides? That means he is saying this rainwater sometimes might be utilized to worship the demigod, might be used to worship Shakti, might be used to worship Kartikeya, might be used to worship Indra, might be used to worship Chandra. This rainwater comes from all sides, but goes back where? Where does it end? It ends back into the sea. And who is the sea? Krishna is the sea. So very intelligently he is mentioning, as rivers are born from the mountains and filled by the rain, flowing from all sides into the sea, so do all these paths end at you. Akashat patitam toyam yada gacchati sagaram sarvadeva namaskaram keshavam pratigacchati. It finally goes to Keshava. But Krishna says, Akrura, you have not answered my question. My question was, if indirectly everybody is worshipping me, then why don't the worshippers actually attain me? So Akrura is saying, look at the analogy, Krishna. I have actually said the rainwater reaches you. The worshipper does not reach you. Because the worshipper is the mountain. Mountain does not reach the sea. The water reaches the sea. So the water reaches the sea means even though they worship the demigods, the worship reaches you. Akashat patitam toyam yada gacchati sagaram. The yada gacchati is actually for the water, not for the mountain. The mountain is the worshipper, the rain is the worship, and the rain water goes to the sea. Similarly, all worships to the demigods goes to you, Krishna, but the worshipper does not come to you. Right? So this is what is the analogy he is actually giving. And from all directions means from all demigods. And then Srila Prabhupada says, this is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita 9.23-25. Ye api anya devata bhakta yajante shadayanvitaha tepi mam eva kaunteya yayanti abhidhi purvakam. Those who are devotees of other gods, worship them with faith, actually worship only me. But they do so in the wrong way. Krishna is saying they are doing wrongly, because I am the only enjoyer of all sacrifices. Therefore, those who do not recognize my transcendental true nature fall down. So here Akrura is saying, so Krishna, you asked a question, how is that they are worshipping you? I am giving you this analogy. Krishna becomes very happy by this analogy, but at the same time Krishna does not want to leave Akrura by such small questions, because he is not a very simple answerable devotee. He is a very knowledgeable person. So Krishna asks the next question. So let's go to the next verse, which is the starting of it. What is the question Krishna asks? Krishna says, okay, Akrura, you are saying that all the worships, whomever the demigods they offer the worship, it will come to me. But tell me, why can't they directly worship me? What is stopping them from worshipping me directly? Then, which is why Akrura is giving the answer. Sattvam rajastama iti bhavata prakrite guna teshu hi prakrita prota abrahma stavaradayah. He is saying goodness, passion and ignorance, which is called as the modes of material nature. These are the qualities of your material nature, and what do? They are gunas, they entangle, they are the ropes, they completely capture the living entities. And whom do they capture? Do they capture you and me? Do they capture only the people sitting in Chennai? Do they capture only the people sitting in Bombay? Do they capture only the people sitting in Sharjah and Qatar? No, they capture everyone from this material world, everyone, right from Lord Brahma down to even those creatures which are not moving. So by stating these entire extremes, Brahma, the highest living entity, to the lowest non-moving creature, he is saying the modes of material nature are all over them, because of which they do not directly pray to you. So if anybody asks us a question, why Krishna is not coming and telling us that we should pray to him and him only, why is he telling all this in Bhagavad Gita? The answer is all the living entities are under the modes of material nature. So then, understanding this, Krishna is now smiling at Akrura. Okay, now you have understood that everybody is under modes of material nature. So what are you going to do, Akrura? You are also in this mix, right? Because right from Brahma to the non-moving creature, somewhere in this scale, Akrura, you are also there. So what is going to be your action? Are you going to go like the demigods, or are you going to come to me directly? This is the question that Krishna is asking. So immediately before he asks that question, Akrura does a very beautiful thing. He starts with Namaste. He first bows down to Krishna. See, this is a greatest understanding in a devotee's life. When we pay obeisances when the altar opens, when we pay obeisances first thing in the morning seeing the Lord, when we pay obeisances when we are closing the altar, when we pay obeisances to Krishna when we are offering bhoga to him, when we pay obeisances after paying all the respects of arati to Supreme Lord and asking for forgiveness if there were any mistakes in the service, this obeisance highly pleases Krishna. We should find opportunities to pay obeisances again and again and again. Sometimes we take shortcuts, and this shortcut should be avoided, because this verse, what Akrura is saying, is a culmination of his prayers, of one type of prayers which he prayed till the 11th verse. What is he doing? He is simply paying his obeisances to say everybody from Brahma to the non-living creature is bound by the material modes of nature. Hence, I am also bound by material modes of nature, but I am paying obeisances unto you, which means I am surrendering unto you. So obeisances before deities, before spiritual master, before seniors, before Vaishnavas is actually a method by which we are surrendering our false ego, and we are surrendering unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So let us see this beautiful surrender which Akrura is doing. Tubhyam namaste te avishakta drishtaye sarvatmane sarvadhiyam sach sakshine guna pravahoham avidyakarta pravartate deva nitriyag atmasu. So here he is saying, I offer my obeisances unto you, who as the supreme soul of all beings witness everyone's consciousness with unbiased vision. So he is saying, Krishna, you are the drishtaye, you are the witness. The current of your material modes produced by the force of ignorance flows strongly among the living beings who assume identities as not only humans, demigods, humans, animals, birds, etc. So this seems to be an out of court kind of a prayer right in between, but look at the intention of Akrura. Akrura is saying, Krishna, you are asking why people are not coming directly and worshipping me? The answer is they are by modes of material nature. Baba, I am also stuck in modes of material nature. Hence, I am paying my obeisances unto you. And I am paying my obeisances unto you because by paying obeisances unto you, I am showing you my real intent. And what is the real intent? To achieve you, Krishna. My real intent is to achieve you. And if you show mercy to your devotees, right, and everything is possible. In other words, he is saying, Krishna, you only show mercy to your devotees who worship you directly. You actually do not show mercy to others who are indirect worshippers of demigods. Then Krishna is saying, Are, how come you are saying like this? How if I am told that I only give mercy to my devotees and I do not give mercy to my indirect worshippers of demigods, how is it possible? Because just 2-3 verses before you said that even if they offer worship to the demigods, it is going to come and reach me. So finally, if it is going to reach me, it is benefiting me. If it is benefiting me, then I am inclined to them. So if I am inclined to them, how can you say that I am actually showing mercy only to them? So understanding this question coming from Krishna, Akrura uses a very beautiful word in this shloka. This shloka is called as Sarva Atmane, and Srila Prabhupada describes this word Sarva Atmane as to the soul of all. So this is a very beautiful verse where Akrura is saying, Krishna, you are the underlying basis of everything. Everything you are the basis. You receive worship by all personalities. All the worships come to you, just like how we saw the rainwater. But those who are not directly worshipping to you, you do not have any obligation to them. Those who are indirect worshippers, they do not have any obligation to them. But even though you don't have obligation, because you are a super soul, you are sitting in their heart and you are witnessing, you are aloof of their activities. Somebody might be worshipping Ganesha, somebody might be worshipping Kartikeya, somebody might be worshipping Indra, somebody might be worshipping Chandra, but you are sitting in everybody's heart and witnessing all this, but you are aloof. But if somebody is coming and offering you a simple, nice coconut, then you will immediately take it. Just like today, Sarvapallika Mataji shared a very nice post of that devotee, Dasi Bauchi, I guess, of Jagannath, of how he could not come to Lord Jagannath. And he gave the coconut to one other Brahmana and he said, you please go and offer this to Jagannath. Now look at this. This is also indirect, but the worship is not indirect. The personality for whom this coconut is being sent is for the Supreme Lord Jagannath. The Brahmana said, you are of a lower caste, and if you are of a lower caste, how can you offer? He said, no, if you take this coconut and go to Jagannath, in case he rejects it, bring it back. This is the only condition. The Brahmana started laughing. Oh, who is this personality? Who is giving this coconut? And I will give it to Jagannath, and Jagannath will tell me that I am going to reject it or accept it. And if he rejects it, I have to bring it back. What kind of logic is it? Like that, laughingly, he went to the temple. And in the temple, when he actually showed the Jagannath, and this is coming from the Mr. Bauchi, who is actually not able to come here, and he offered it to you. Jagannath extended his hands and picked it up from the Brahmana's hand. This is the direct reciprocation. This is the mercy he shows. From the Brahmana's hands, he picked it up and he did not reject the coconut. A very simple offering of a coconut, which is coming from the nature, which is coming from Krishna, but Krishna takes it up with full love. So this is a direct offering, and hence Akrura is saying, those who are direct worshippers, you have an obligation towards them, Sarvatmane, but you are the soul of all. You are sitting in everybody's heart, and hence you are a witness of their activities, but it is all worship is coming to you. And Krishna says, Then Akrura, tell me why? Why can't the demigods, for whom so much of offering is going on by so many different kind of people, why can't they deliver their devotees? Why can't they? Why can't they actually deliver and give moksha, give liberation to their devotees? And that is why the second verse he mentions Guna Pravahoyam Avidyaya Karta. Guna Pravaho. Guna Pravaho means that by the current of your material modes produced by the force of ignorance flows strongly among living beings. So, this force of ignorance and the modes of material nature, it is not only flowing in humans, it is flowing in animals, in birds, and it is also flowing in demigods, because of which they cannot deliver their bhaktas. So, only one person can give delivery and can give you prime delivery within 1 second, and that is none other than Krishna and Krishna alone. So Krishna smiles further. Akrura understands the position of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. These verses seem to be intertwined, but these verses hold a gravity of meaning under them. There are layers and layers of meaning under each one of these prayers that Akrura is offering. Akrura is not offering prayers just like that, saying Krishna is Supreme Personality Godhead, you have modes of material nature, everything is. No, there is a conversation which is happening behind. Krishna is asking questions, Akrura is answering these questions, and this is getting, and these questions are not like physical questions being answered. These are happening in the mind. Akrura understands Krishna is going to ask this question. He is anticipating the questions, and he is saying his prayers, what's coming up next, what's coming up next. So while he answered this question, that all the direct worshippers, that those are the devotees, you are obligated, you show your causeless mercy, but you are totally aloof and only a witness to those worshippers who are worshippers of demigods. And let me tell you, Krishna, the worshippers of the demigods cannot deliver them, because they are all stuck in the force of the modes of material nature from ignorance, starting from the demigods, the humans, animals, birds, etc. So Akrura continues his prayers in the 13th and the 14th. He says, now let us talk about the demigods itself, Krishna, because you are asking so many questions about the demigods. Let us address the demigods. And he says a beautiful verse. All the demigods that you see, right? Who are the demigods? He says 2 shlokas full of demigods. He says fire is nothing but your face. So Agni, who is the demigod of fire, he is nothing but your face. Earth, Prithvi, is your feet, right? Sun, Avani and Ikshanam, Surya is your eye. Sky is your navel. Directions are your sense of hearing. Chief demigods are your arms, oceans, abdomen. Heaven is your head. Wind is your vital air and physical strength. Trees and plants are the hairs on your body. Clouds are the hair on your head. Mountains are the bones and nails of you, the Supreme. Passage of day and night is the blinking of your eyes. The progenitor of mankind is your genitals, and the rain is your semen. So like this, Akrura immediately, because he is talking about the worshippers of the demigods and they cannot deliver, here he is saying all those demigods are nothing but you in your Virata Rupa, the universal form, the Vairaja Rupa. There you have shown the universal form, and these all demigods are nothing but you. So isn't it true, Krishna, when I say all the demigod worshippers are actually worshipping you, because all the demigods are in you? So like this, in different logic, Akrura is saying all the demigod worshippers, finally the worship reaches to you, Krishna, and even if they worship the demigod, they are actually worshipping you, because they are the part and parcel of your Vairaja form. And this verse is a testimony of various different demigods worshipping you. Then Krishna asks a very beautiful question. Okay, now you are saying that all the demigods are in me, and all those who worship the demigods, are indirectly worshipping me. Then tell me something. Those who are my worshippers, they come to me. Those who are my worshippers, they come to me. Ajiva bhuna loka punaravartino china mam upetyantu kaunteya punarjanma na vidyate. Right? And then they say they will come back to me. Right? So those who are my worshippers, Akrura, they come to me. But why don't the demigod worshippers come to me? Give me an answer for this question. And that is when Akrura smiles and gives another beautiful verse to answer this question. But before we see the answer to this question, I would like to pose this question to the audience. First question is Krishna's questioning correct? Krishna is saying that if all the demigods are worshipped and indirectly they are worshipping me because it is my universal form, then why don't the demigod worshippers attain me? Because those who worship me should attain me. So my first question is Krishna's question correct? And number two, what is the answer? Anybody in the audience? They should sometimes guess the answer also. These are very transcendental. Then only we will get to know where Akrura is answering and where our mental capabilities are or our knowledgeable capabilities are.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Yes.
Means can we try with the analogy of a tree? Like we can water the root actually, rather than the other part.
Okay. By watering the root of the tree, we are ensuring that we are taking care of the whole tree. But again, the question is, why aren't the worshippers of demigods coming back to Krishna? How do we answer that? But the analogies are a good way. That's a very good way to start. Anybody else?
Do you mind repeating the question? Like worshippers, they don't reach Krishna, or their worship reaches Krishna?
So there are two things. Akrura mentioned that everybody who worships the demigods, the worship reaches Krishna. Just like we said, the worshippers are the mountains and the worship are the rain which is coming from the mountains, which is from the clouds, which are the Vedas. So the rainwater is reaching the sea, which is Krishna. So we see that the mountains do not reach the sea, the rainwater reaches the sea. So the worship reaches Krishna. So Krishna is also asking this question. Tell me that Akrura, you are saying all the demigods are me in the Virata Rupa, in the Vairata Rupa, in the universal form. In the previous verse you said everything. So if they are worshipping my universal form and all the demigods are me, why don't they come to me? Why don't the Indra Chandra worshippers come to me? This is the question.
Because they don't think of Krishna while worshiping.
Okay. But here Akrura is saying indirectly they are thinking about Agni, but Agni is your face. They are thinking about Prithvi, Prithvi is your feet. So indirectly they are talking about you only, no Krishna. So Krishna is saying, if you indirectly talking about me, then why don't you reach? So Mataji is saying, they don't directly think about Krishna. They are indirectly thinking about it. Okay.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Prabhuji, again that analogy of elephant also.
Yeah, bring all analogy, Prabhu. No problem. Today is a class of
they are
analogy.
Everybody look like the elephant. One person is seeing the leg. One person is seeing.
One person touches the tail and says this is a snake.
Tail.
One person touches the trunk and says it's a rope. Okay.
Rope.
So these are perspectives. This analogy is generally given to say different perspectives, and this is generally given to say blind men, when they are touching different parts, cannot tell the truth. So you need somebody to know the person in a holistic way. Okay, let us look at Akrura's very, very unique way of explaining this very difficult question. This is not an easy question, because even we know when this question is asking, oh, you know what, Bhagavad Gita, dekho na, Bhagavad Gita ke chapter mein likha hai, only those who worship Krishna comes to him. But Akrura is not using Bhagavad Gita. He has to use the common knowledge and then he said. So let us see what Akrura says. And this is a big botanical and zoological reason and a very beautiful reason. He says, Tvai avyatmanan purushe prakalpita lokas sapala bahujiva sankulaha yata jale sanjihate jalaukasho api udumbare va masaka manomaye. The last two lines are the analogy. Yatha jale sanjita jalaukasho udyumbare va mashakam manomaye. So here he says, all the worlds with the presiding demigods and teeming population. Krishna, you are talking about the demigods. All the demigods and their population, that means their wives, their children, their worshippers, their bhaktas ancestry, their paraphernalia, all those who worship the demigods and their teeming population. Where do they originate from? They come from you. Krishna is saying, but give me the analogy. He is saying, yes, I am coming to it. The inexhaustible Supreme Personality of Godhead, they all lie in you. And their entire world, unka pura dunya of the demigods, they are actually within you, within the Vairaja Rupa, within the universal form. How? Krishna says, how is it possible? How are you saying this? I'll say, just like in the Vishal ocean, in the great ocean, there are many small fishes, big fishes. There are many aquatics and they are all inside the ocean. Similarly, the demigod and demigods teeming populations are all within you and they are actually inside you. And he gives one other example, and this example is the most beautiful example. He says, just like tiny insects burrow within an udumbara fruit. Now somebody will be asking, which is this fruit, Prabhu? I go every day to the fruit market. I ask for papaya, mango. I never heard about this fruit, udumbara fruit. So today we are going to speak 5 to 10 minutes about this udumbara fruit and the tiny insect. We are going to take a dovetail into a botanical zoological session. Udumbara is the Sanskrit word for fig. Generally, if you know fig, a fig is a fruit which is generally seen. There is an Indian fig. Even the Peepal ka Ped has small berries and figs. And these figs are generally a rich source of fruit vitamins for the animals in the forest, as well as some humans consume it. As per Vedanta Deshika, who wrote a very great science called he wrote a science called as Niyama, that is Ahara Niyamam. He actually wrote a text called as Ahara Niyamam, where rules of eating is mentioned. In that, he classifies the foodstuffs in 3 different categories. In the first category, he means Jati Dushanam, that means corrupted or those food articles that you should not eat by Vaishnavas, in which onion, garlic, etc. comes. One of the item he mentions is this fruit called as Udumbara fruit or the fig fruit. Now we have to understand what is this alienation, what is so much typical about this Udumbara fruit that Vedanta Deshika said you should not eat, and here Akrura is mentioning Krishna's answer with this Udumbara fruit. The answer lies in that tiny insect, which is nothing than a wasp. There is a strong connection between a wasp and a Udumbara fruit or a fig. For this, we have to see a small bit of a picture that I am going to showcase it in front of you. This is a picture of the fig, how it grows. I hope you all can see the picture. You see this insect which is called as the wasp. What this insect, this is a female wasp. What does this female wasp do? This female wasp, when it is pregnant with eggs, it will constantly search for a fruit which is called as the fig. And whenever it sees an unripened fig, which is attached to a fig tree, and this is the fig fruit that you can see on your screen. This female wasp will try to enter into this fig. And how does it enter? It finds the weakened spot of the fig, which is nearly at the bottom of the opening, which is called generally in botanical terms as osteoli. But they actually go into this tip of the fruit, they bite into the fruit, and they try to tunnel into the fruit. But you know what happens? Because this female has wings, these wings cannot go inside the fruit. So they leave their wings are broken when they enter into the fig. And when they enter into the fig, their wings are broken. Now you can see their wings are gone, and they burrow themselves inside the core of the fig. When you cut a fig, you will see how it is. It is like a valley of flowers. In each one of those flowers, there are some holes inside which this wasp will lay its eggs. And once these eggs are laid, each one of these flowers will catch these eggs. So generally you will see some eggs which are there in each of these flowers. Sometimes when you eat fig, sorry, this might seem gross, you will get some crunchiness in those figs. Those are nothing but wasp eggs, but some bug parts are allowed in the human body. But they actually leave these eggs inside the flowers of the figs, and when it leaves these eggs, from these eggs emerge after some time the male of the wasps. So the female gives birth to a lot of males and other females of the wasps. So what happens here is, these males further emerge from the valley of the flowers. They don't have wings because they are not going to see the light of the day. They are not going to go out of the fig. They are only going to go and further germinate these eggs and create more females. So these wasps go inside and germinate more female wasps, and they do the final ultimate sacrifice, that the male wasp, what do? Look at here, they create a tunnel for this female wasps to escape. So once that female wasp who came in and put all the eggs, she will die inside the fig, and new males are born, and these males create further females who use this tunnel, and out of the tunnel they will fly, and once they fly, they find out which is the next fruit that they should enter. So this is the entire cycle of a fig and a wasp, and this fruit is called as the Udumbara fruit. And here Akrura is saying, just like a world is going on in itself, we don't know, there is an outside world, but inside a fig there is a world of Punarapi Jananam, Punarapi Maranam, Punarapi Janani, Jatare Shayanam. This entire world is going on, and in that world they think that that is their world. But what is the benefit to the Udumbara fruit? When these particular wasps go across these flowers, they carry the seeds of this fig, and when they go to the next flower or the next fruit, they cross pollinate, thereby the fig trees keep growing in the forest. So this is called as mutualism. Mutualism means one insect is using the other plant or other animal mutually for each other's benefit. So in this case, let us come back to Srimad Bhagavatam. So you might seem like we went through a botanical lecture, but let us try to understand it with Srimad Bhagavatam by reading this verse. And this is what Akrura is saying in Srimad Bhagavatam. He is saying all the worlds within the presiding demigods and its teeming populations. The wasp also has teeming populations of males and females inside that fruit. And there are lots of great females who have entered first, like demigods. And there are so many worshippers of that particular female wasp. So just like all these demigods, they are all originate in you, like the giant fig, like the Udumbara tree, and it is all coming from you, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. These worlds travel within you. If you go and ask a wasp, what is your world? It will say, I came from fig number 1, I entered into fig number 2, my world is over. Because a wasp lives for only 2 days, its lifetime is only 2 days. It comes out from one fig, goes into another fig, and it dies. So its world is inside the figs. It spends its maximum time inside the figs. And this is the reason why Vedanta Deshika says, because there are more bug parts in these figs, figs are generally not to be consumed by Vaishnavas. But anyway, here in our ISKCON society, we offer everything to Krishna. But there are some figs which we should be very careful, which is infected by wasps. We should avoid those species of figs. But here is the example. Just like in the world of sea, there are many aquatics which are swimming inside the sea. Similarly, in the world of figs, there are many tiny insects. In the same way, many worshippers of demigods are actually in their own worlds, but they are not realizing that you are the source, you are the entire person. Why you are the entire person? He gives some references. Avyatman Atman, Avyaya Atman, inexhaustible. That means your body is completely indestructible. Just because all these demigods are within you does not mean that you get destroyed, because you are indestructible. And your original worshippers consider you as Purusha. That is, they understand you as Satchit Ananda. They understand you as you have a original form. And at the same time, all that I said before, that all the demigods are in you, which I mentioned, that is a temporary form. The universal form is a temporary form, but only your devotees get to know your original form, that you are Sat Chit Ananda. And hence, those who worship the demigods do not understand your original form. That is why they don't come to you. Though they are all inside you, just like the tiny insects inside an Udumbara fruit, just like the oceans and aquatics are inside the ocean, but they do not understand you as Sat, Chit and Ananda. But this is only understood by Loka Sapale Bahujiva Sankulaha Yata Jale Avyatmanan Purushe Prakalpitaha. Purushe, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Prakalpitaha. They understand you as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Hence, you are only achievable by your pure devotees. Look at the magnificent of answer in one verse. If somebody says, how is Srimad Bhagavatam a greatest science textbook? This example of one verse alone can speak about the entire botanical science. You can go to YouTube and see how much research has been done on this fig and wasp tree only in the latest century. But look at this verse, which this is a testimony of how so many years back this entire botanical science was common knowledge for people, and they used it in their day-to-day prayers. This is the intelligence of Srimad Bhagavatam. We should appreciate Srimad Bhagavatam by reading, and this is the harmony that we should create, that science is not to be outright rejected, but science has to be understood through the Srimad Bhagavatam, and there are many commonalities, and with that we should appreciate and create a bridge. Not that we go with a hunting rope on all the scientists and saying this is what science is about, this is not what science has told. No, we need to have a harmony of understanding. Science has given certain elements in the Pratyaksha Praman. We should utilize that, and you should also glorify Srimad Bhagavatam through those mechanisms. Going further, very easy verses 16 to 22. In 4 minutes we can cover these verses. Krishna says, okay, you spoke extensively about Akrura, you spoke extensively about my Virata form, my universal form, and all the demigods that are there in that form. Can you tell me something about my original form? Because you said those who worship my original form, only they achieve me. So what can you speak about my original form? So he says, Yani yanani hi rupani krida nartam bibarsihi tairamrishta sucho loka muda gayanti ye yashaha. He says to enjoy your pastimes, you manifest yourself in various forms in this material world. So Krishna, I am going to now talk about your various different forms that you have taken in this material world. Why you come? Number one, to enjoy, because you are the supreme enjoyer. Number two, to give bliss to your devotees. These are the two reasons why you come. So you have come here to give mercy to your conditioned souls in very, very different forms. And these incarnations, just by remembering them, just by reminding yourselves that Krishna has taken so many different forms, it can cleanse away all unhappiness of those who joyfully chant your glories. This is why a very great science is mentioned in Srimad Bhagavatam, and this is very important to understand. There is a direct connection to this verse, and this direct connection goes back all the way to none other than the first canto. And I want you to take you to the first canto. Just be with me. In the first canto, there is a chapter called as I'm just looking at it. Krishna is the source of all incarnations. We all went through this chapter on the first go. First canto, chapter number 3, Krishna is the source of incarnations. Look at what Akrura is saying. To enjoy your pastimes, you come in various forms in this material world, and just by remembering these pastimes, all unhappiness of those who joyfully chant your glories, all unhappiness is gone, and they are joyful because they chant your glories. And this is confirmed in the last verse. After reading through all the incarnations, Sukadeva Goswami says, 1.26. I'm going to read out that exact verse where he says this particular shloka. Yes, 17th incarnation, 18th incarnation, and then he keeps on mentioning about all these incarnations in the first chapter, and finally he says, this Bhagavata Purana is brilliant as the sun, and it has arisen after the departure of Lord Krishna to his own world. Persons who have lost their vision due to dense darkness of ignorance, that means they will be unhappy, they are, and shall get light from this Purana, that means they will get happiness. O learned Brahmanas, when Sukadeva Goswami recited Bhagavatam there in presence of Emperor Parikshit, I heard him with rapt attention, and thus by mercy I learned the Bhagavatam from that great powerful stage. Now I shall make you hear. He says also a very, here it is. This Srimad Bhagavatam is the literary incarnation of God, and it is compiled by Srila Vyasadeva, the incarnation of God. It is meant for ultimate good of people. It is all successful, all blissful. That means it will drive away all the unhappiness from this planet. So when we read about the incarnations of the Lord, which is what Akrura is also going to start, and he starts by saying the first few incarnations, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. We will cover in 1 minute, because it is nothing but the mentioning of incarnations. He says, you are Krishna Matsya, because you came in the ocean of dissolution, and you carried the Saptarishis, the Vedas, protected the Vedas, and hence I pay my obeisances unto you. You came as Hayagriva, the greatest teacher, forgot his textbooks, and then he lost his textbooks, and as Hayagriva you killed Madhu and Kaitaba, and hence I pay my obeisances unto you. You are known as Akurupaya, Akupparaya means king of tortoises. Like Kurma, you supported the Mandara mountain, and you were the cause of the Shir Sagar, of churning of the milk ocean, from which many different beautiful articles came. And you are Varaha, who actually lifted Mother Earth, and whose hair, when fell down on Mother Earth, became Kushagras. So you are also the greatest lion, who is none other than Narsimha, who came to remove the fear of Prahlad Maharaj. And at the same time, you are none other than Vaman Dev, who took by 3 baby steps all the 3 worlds. At the same time, you are none other than the Lord of Bhrigupati Rupa, who is none other than Parashuram, who cut down the forest of conceited royal order. And at the same time, you are Supreme Lord Ramchandra, who came in the Raghu's dynasty, in the Sun dynasty, and you gave an end to Ravana. At the same time, you all obeisances unto you, Krishna, the Lord of Sattvatas. Sattvatam Kule, the gopis have sung. So you came as the Lord of the Sattvatas, and all to your Chaturvyuha forms, which is none other than Vasudeva, Sankarshana, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha. Finally, Namo Buddhaya Shuddhaya. Now I would like to talk about one personality who is Lord Buddha, who many people felt that he has manipulated the Vedas, but I am going to give him a special title, Krishna, which is Namo Buddhaya Shuddhaya. He is still purest of the pure, because that Buddha is also you, Krishna. So obeisances unto the faultless Shuddhaya Buddha. So he is the faultless Buddha, who is none other than you, who will bewilder the Daityas and the Danavas. And finally, I pay obeisances to none other than Kalki, who will be the annihilator, who will come in the future, and he will be the annihilator of the meat eaters, who will post themselves as the greatest government leaders or kings or monarchs. So in this way, Akrura has mentioned about the universal form, spoke extensively how demigod worshippers are actually worshipping Krishna. Still they don't achieve Krishna. He is not going against Bhagavad Gita. And finally, when Krishna asks, tell me my personal forms, he lists down all the beautiful forms just by hearing these forms: Matsya, Kurma, Hayagriva, Varaha, Vamana, Parashurama, Narsimha, Rama, Balarama, Buddha, Kalki, Krishna. All these, Aniruddha, Sankarshana, Pradyumna, all these forms, just by hearing and chanting these names, all the unhappiness within the heart immediately vanishes. And this is the power of Srimad Bhagavatam. And this is the prayer Akrura is saying, not out of just prayerful mood, the hankering that he had while coming to Vrindavan. By watching Krishna, he could not speak to him openly. Now Krishna is showing him the form of lying down in the Yamuna waters, and with folded hands, and with great gratitude and great humility, we will see how Akrura is exhibiting his humility tomorrow from 23 to 30, which is the last 7 verses of this particular beautiful prayer. We will see how to conclude a prayer. While we might have glorified Krishna, finally the last lines are of the poet or of the author when they sign off their work. We should also learn from Akrura, following in his footsteps. That's what Prabhupada said. We should follow the footsteps of Akrura. So we should follow how he closes a prayer. A closure of a prayer is very important, and how he places himself as a lowly jiva and expects the mercy of Krishna. And Krishna does not give the mercy immediately. He asks counter questions. Why should I give you the mercy? This is how Krishna is. Krishna is engaging in question and answer. We should be intelligent by learning these prayers, that when we one day, after maybe millions of births, or tomorrow, or the next birth, or this very birth, when we are posed with these questions, our answer should come from Srimad Bhagavatam. Those should be in our tips of our tongue, and we should be able to answer these from the light of Bhagavata. So we will learn those shlokas tomorrow, which is text number 23 to text number 30, and we will see what Krishna replied after the entire prayers of Akrura was mentioned, and we will conclude this Akrura's prayers tomorrow. I thank each and every one for coming here today, being a part of this lecture, and if there are any questions, comments, clarifications, feedbacks, I am more than happy to welcome them. If you found anything mistake in the lecture, please correct them, so that I can improve, and I can give all the credit to my Gurujanas and my spiritual master, from whom all these great learnings have been learned. Hare Krishna, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. So if there are any questions, please.
There's a question in the chat.
There is a question in the chat. 1 second. So question is, why do demigods grant wishes more easily than Krishna does to his devotees? A very nice question. So their rule of or their governance is very small. Their governance is only to give some material benefits. So it is like saying, you can go to Krishna and ask anything in this planet world, but the one thing that he does not give cheaply is the bhakti or devotional service. The demigods give away because their jurisdiction and governance is to give wealth, is to give certain material things which are very manageable, and to manipulate that is very easy. So the manipulation of wealth, dhanam dehi, buddhim dehi, vidyam dehi, putrim dehi, putram dehi, vadum devi. So all these, give me a good bridegroom, give me a good bride, give me good money, give me good this thing, these are all very easily manipulatable in the material world. And the demigods are none other than possessor of certain material abilities. So it becomes very easy, and they give that. They have been sanctioned by Krishna to give these to those who are coming for asking this. Krishna can also give. So intelligent person goes to Krishna and asks the same thing. But you know what? When Krishna gives all this, he somewhere tweaks our ear in such a way that we slowly come out of it. So that is why even if you have material desires, go to Krishna. Because Krishna, maybe we ask to Krishna starting materially, but in the process of sanctioning things from Krishna, even for material purposes, what happens is Krishna finally tweaks our ear, and one day we won't stand there and ask for material things. Because the process of asking even material things to Krishna is purifying ourselves to become bhakti. Whereas in the demigod's case, you go and ask for a material thing, there is no purification of bhakti. Bhakti doesn't grow, only material desires kept on hankering, and those kept on getting realized, and at death it is taken away. So if somebody is interested only in material happiness, it is better to, and he wants a jhatpat solution, Krishna can also give, but there are certain personalities who are there. If you want to get a signature to clear the road which is in front of your house, you don't need to go to Narendra Modi. You can go to a local councillor who can sign this check for you, and he will clear the road. But you can go to him also. It's a long process. But in that, by getting to know him, you will get so many additional benefits. Right? Not only this road, when he comes, the whole city gets cleansed. Right? So like that, when Krishna comes, everything gets solved. So Krishna is the sanctioner of all the things what the demigods give. Demigods have a smaller jurisdiction, due to which the prayers to them seemingly seems to be given more faster than what Krishna gives. But Krishna is, when you go to Krishna and ask even for material desires, over the long run it becomes purified and slowly moves towards bhakti. So that is a higher benefit. I hope that answers the question. Any other question, comments?
Hare Krishna, Dhananpuram Prabhuji.
Pranam.
Hare Krishna, Krishna asking worship me direct and demigods, no? So, what is the difference of our indirect and direct worship in the Krishna? So, we understand, we living in the, for example, 108 flat. So, we reach the 108 flat two way, one in the seats, one in the lift. So, who is the intelligent person using the lift?
Correct.
So, if use that intelligent person is coming to ISKCON, then we know what is the number of living 108. That is the number. Remember Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Then you push the button to 108. That push the button Satsanga, our unit. That's you reach the. Otherwise, the CD is going to take time.
Long time. Very nice.
long time. We don't know. If you go into lift satsanga, then easily achieve our goal. That's why we direct worship in the Krishna. I will understand like that.
Wonderful, Prabhu. Thank you for the analogy. Very nicely put. Thank you, Rajesh. Prabhu. Very nice. Press the 108 and go with devotees along with the lift direct to Krishna. Okay. Any other question?
Prabhuji, I had a question. Now we did the 23 prayers. Like Akrura has I mean, he wants to bring Krishna to the wrestling arena. So, but he is now still not entered Vrindavan, and he's entered, or that's what I was asking. That he's at
Yes.
a location near to Vrindavan, or he's just praying.
He has entered Vrindavan.
Entered Vrindavan.
He when we actually saw last Friday, we spoke about how Akrura was entering Vrindavan.
Okay.
In between, that is called as a chapter which is called as Akrura's arrival in Vrindavan. At that time he is contemplating, seeing the footprints. Then he goes and meets Krishna and Balaram in Nanda Maharaj's house, and he sees Krishna and tells him that how this entire Dhanur Yagna has been organized. And then Krishna orders Nanda Maharaj and the cowherd boys to come along with them to none other than Mathura. And when the gopis try to stop him, and then they sit on the chariot, and finally the chariot moves, the gopas are coming behind, and when they are about, and when they left Vrindavan and they are about to enter Mathura, in between it became morning and the morning bath had to be taken. So Krishna and Balaram got down, took bath in the Yamuna river and came back and sat on the chariot. At that time Akrura is going and taking bath. At that time he is seeing this entire manifestation in front of him and he is offering the prayers. So Krishna and Balaram are on their way in transit
From
to Mathura, from Vrindavan to Mathura, and in between there is a bath. So even today when you actually go for Brajmandal Parikrama from Mathura, when you go towards Chattikara and when you go towards Vrindavan, on the right hand side after the Gita Mandir there is a place called as Akrura Ghat, and in this Akrura Ghat the Yamuna has moved a little inside, but it is just next to the Mahavan where Prahlad Maharaj also prayed, and on top of it there is a beautiful temple where on the Prangan you can go and see Akrura Ghat. And so all these places are still visible when we go to Vrindavan.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you. Wonderful class, Prabhuji.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Any other questions, comments? Okay, if there are no more questions, thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Granth Bhagavatam ki jai. Tomorrow we will see the last 7 prayers, text number 23 to text number 30.
At 4:30.
4:30 p.m. tomorrow.
Yes. Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Wonderful class. Thank you so much. We'll pray one time Hare Krishna mantra for Prabhu for his advancement in Krishna consciousness. Okay, Prabhu has rendered a very nice lecture, so we'll just pray for him. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Bol. Then we will say Vanchakalpa, and thank you very much for joining, everybody. And we will just say Vanchakalpa and we will leave. Vanchakalpatarubhascha kripa sindhubhyev cha patithanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namo.
Namo Namah.
Anantakoti Vaishnavrinda ki jai.
Jai.
Hare Bol.
Hari Bol.
Hare Krishna. His Grace Shyam Sundar Prabhu ki jai.
Jai.
Hare Bol.